care be shown to older members of the community. And Director Adamo questioned about rural encampments near small communities such as Yale and what role the FBRD can play. Director Makahonic had some advice regarding provincial service providers that can help out. And that was the limit of the discussion during the open meeting.
Pardon me, Chair, there was no audio until the last 10 seconds of your report. It's just kicked in now, so I'm not sure if I've missed something.
I said that during the open part of the meeting this morning, the really only subject that we really got into or talked about was the homeless count. And I can go through that again if you're interested, Director Davidson.
I can follow up offline, but thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Ms. Kinnaman.
So looking for approval of the agenda and late items. And I would just note for the committee that there has been some discussion and a request to vary the agenda today to accommodate our friends with BC Wildfire Service, who are obviously fully tasked at this time of year. If we could move them to speak earlier than the second delegation, as well as to recess into closed session at the end of 5.2.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman. So we're looking for a motion on the agenda. Move Director Johnson, second Director Dixon. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor. Contrary, the motion carries.
So that would bring us to our delegation from the BC Wildfire Service, Kimberly Kelly, who is the Community Engagement Specialist.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Kimberly Kelly. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist with the Coastal Fire Center. Today, I'm speaking from the Hague Fire Base, which is on the beautiful unceded territory of the Stolo and Ninkamup people. Thank you for having me. I'm going to give a brief overview today of the BC Wildfire Service, our Wildfire Act, the Coastal Fire Center and Fraser Zone, response and agency jurisdiction, a summer outlook, and a fire status update. I will move through the presentation quite quickly. There was a PDF package offered to you, and I ask that you print it and do keep it handy as a resource because it will contain a lot of information. So starting with the BC Wildfire Service mandate, the Wildfire Service is mandated to deliver effective wildfire management and emergency response support on behalf of the Government of British Columbia. So you can just move to the next slide, please. Thank you. The lives and values that we protect in this order are life and safety of responders and the public, homes and properties, critical infrastructure, and other values such as timber. And of course, through our prevention and preparedness program, we encourage sustainable, healthy, and resilient ecosystems. Next slide, please. So the BC Wildfire Act, readily available on our website or via a easy Google search. This just defines the legal responsibilities and obligations of all British Columbians. So when the BC Wildfire Service puts campfire bans into place or restrictions into an area, the Wildfire Act makes them enforceable. Next slide, please. So the BC Wildfire Service is granted authority by the BC Wildfire Act to carry out fire control. You can see on the presentation, our jurisdiction is Crown land and Indian Reserve lands outside of a local government fire protection area. Next slide, please. So the Coastal Fire Center, there's some statistics there, but notably that it's 85% of BC's population. That means that when we do have a wildfire, the majority of them are either in a high visibility area or likely or possible to interface with urban areas. You can see, by this map here that it's intersected with large bodies of water. We are in areas in steep and rugged terrain and areas that are difficult to access via aviation, lack of roads, or by water. Next slide, please. So the Fraser Zone, which is where the Fraser Valley Regional District is contained, is an area that covers 1,600 1,630,000 hectares. So that includes 33 municipalities, either contained within or bordering with other fire zones. We work with 45 fire departments, 35 First Nations communities, and of course, the MVRD, as well as yourself. Next slide, please. So with respect to emergency response collaboration, and there was a great example just yesterday with us working with Metro Vancouver on Fire V11616 on Mount Seymour. If you could just turn to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about who is responsible when a wildfire is detected on the landscape. So within a fire department's jurisdiction, the BC Wildfire Service provides response when requested. We hold an interagency agreement with the BC Wildfire Service and the Fire Chiefs Association to engage and assist, again, when requested by that fire department. So our operational procedures ensure that there's an understanding of roles and responsibilities within that incident command, which again would be led by the fire department in that jurisdiction. Next slide, please. So this is the jurisdiction of the Fraser Valley Regional District. You can see the outlines. I believe here my camera's blocking it. Again, of where the jurisdiction of the Fraser Valley Regional District is, including the Boston Bar Fire Department and Hemlock Valley Fire Department. Anywhere outside of those darker brown areas are considered to be Crown land and are the jurisdiction of the BC Wildfire Service. Next slide, please. So I won't go into this slide with a lot of detail. There is a lot of copy on it. And again, there is a PDF package available that contains all of this information, but it just outlines the agencies that are responsible in the event of an emergency. So we have the BC Wildfire Service, who is essentially responsible for the fire on the landscape on Crown land or IR land. Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, who is essentially responsible for the people in the event of evacuation alerts or orders, and really coordinates all of the other agencies that are required for response. Your local municipality and regional districts works directly on the strategic evacuation orders in their jurisdiction. And lastly, in First Nations on IR lands, the evacuation orders and alerts are implemented by the Band Council. So I encourage you to look through this in more detail just to familiarize yourselves with who does what when. You know, it is a fairly well-oiled machine in the ways that we work together. And specifically, I'd like to give a shout out to Rena, who we work very closely with and who I've been working very closely with alongside the Fraser Zone and my colleagues at the Fraser Fire Center, sorry, the Coastal Fire Center. But this is the key piece, I think, for helping yourselves and your communities understand who to turn to for information during an emergency. Again, that is the emergency management planning in the regional district, as well as emergency management and climate readiness. The BC Wildfire Services jurisdiction is wildfire response and mitigation operations. Next slide, please. I wanted to just give a bit of a summer outlook of where we're looking to go in this season. So as you all know, we've had drier than normal conditions throughout May, June, and we're expecting them through July and August. July and August are traditionally our driest months of the year. And although it is impossible to forecast out that far, if we look at historical data, we would consider July and August to follow the drying trend that they have in other years. So currently there is no indication and no forecast of significant rainfall or precipitation anywhere in our fire center. And we are looking at severe drought conditions. Next slide, please. So as I just mentioned, with these drought conditions and no significant precipitation events predicted, our fire indices are expected to continue to climb. That being said, the majority of the Coastal Fire Center is in high to extreme fire danger at this time. We are seeing aggressive fire behavior and challenging initial attack conditions. Next slide, please. In the Coastal Fire Center, now this was July 10th, I have a bit of an update. We did have some other fires kick off in the last little while, but in the last 24 hours provincially, we have seen 44 new starts. In the last 7 days provincially, we've seen 391 new starts, and fire since April, 1,034. This is very different from what we saw in 2022. I can tell you that this year in the Coastal Fire Center, we're now tracking, as of today, 141 fires, 112 which are suspected to be human caused. Just for reference, last year on this date, there were a total of 19 fires to date. That's April 1st to today, July 13th. But we did receive significant precipitation events in May and June. Next slide, please. On this slide, there's just a little bit of information of how to stay informed. We strongly encourage you, as well as your communities, to download the BC Wildfire Service free mobile app. That map contains a dashboard that has interactive information about the current wildfire status. It as well has the option to set up a near me notification, so you can pick a geographic area up to a 100-kilometer radius to receive a push notification if a wildfire is reported near you. It also includes information about prohibitions, evacuations alerts, and fires of note. Also, we have our social media information there, our Facebook and Twitter group channels, our BC YouTube channel, and as well our information hotline. Please note that the Coastal Fire Center information line is 250-951-4209. So I moved through that a little bit quickly because I wanted to have the opportunity for questions. And so I will open the floor now to questions. If there are any questions that I'm unable to answer during this session, I will collect them and respond back.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Very nice presentation. We understand your time is at a premium. How much time might you have slotted for us?
Let me just look. Can you please let me know what the time is now?
It is 1:45.
Okay, so I will have 10 minutes for questions.
Great. Thank you. Directors. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation. Forget your exact number, but the majority of fires are human caused right now. Do you know what's causing them? Is it cigarette butts? Is it campfires? Is it ATVs throwing sparks? Or is it all of the above? And I'm just going to ask two in one. So, and what type of effort would you be making to, close down, I guess, or keep people out of some of the back country areas?
Thank you for the question. In terms of fire cause analysis, when we do look at fire causes, it does take some time for us to create those analysis. So, in short, I would say all of the above, which is part of the reason why we put the campfire prohibitions in place. We have put the category 2 backyard burning restrictions in place. All open fire in the Coastal Fire Center is now prohibited. And I can share with you some historical data after this event about our fire cause analysis. But just to clarify the numbers, 141 fire starts in the Coastal Fire Center, 112 are suspected to be human caused. So in terms of efforts and closures, we are encouraging the public to be extremely careful and cautious when they are recreating in the backcountry. There is no plan in place right now to do a backcountry or forecountry closure. We understand the need for people to recreate, specifically in times of concern and high anxiety. Mental health and physical health is important. So There is not a plan to do a backcountry or forecountry closure at this time, but we will certainly consider it as these fire indices continue to change.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Director Davidson.
Thank you. A couple things. One is for the human-caused fires. Any sort of rough estimate as to what percentage of them or number of them are likely to or traditionally ever do result in any kind of direct enforcement action against the person who caused the fire? And the second question I would have is for closures, living in sight of the Davis Lake fire right now. You hear it constantly from the community is that, why weren't these roads closed ahead of time? I understand the need for people to recreate, but I was wondering if you could speak with any kind of specificity as to what criteria your service uses in determining whether or not the backcountry should be open or not. Because right now it seems to be a bunch of people say it should be, but then a bunch of other people say no. I'd like to know if there's any kind of specific criteria that informs that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll go to your first question. Again, that enforcement and, people being fined regarding the fire cause analysis, I would have to go to the historical data, and I'd be happy to follow up with that information for you. In terms of closures, it's one thing to do a backcountry closure, it's another to enforce it. So we do need to work with our colleagues, at the Conservation Officer Service and look at their resourcing as well to determine what the best measure is. Again, with the FVRD, how are we going to enforce these closures? And, for the effort that we're going to go to put these closures in place, how does that impact our downstream and partner resources with respect to enforcement? And please, Tarina, feel free to jump in if you have something to add on that.
So just to follow up, it sounds like there would never be a closure because there's no resources to enforce a closure. So there are no criteria that would preempt, that would ever result in something being proactively closed. You just basically wait for a fire and deal with it. It seems to be where we are right now.
No, is the short answer. We follow a scientific process to determine when the indices indicate that we can not have people safely recreating in the backcountry and the far country. So I did not say that we did not have the resources. I did say that we are required to work with our partners and look at the resources required. If we do need to do a backcountry or a forecountry closure, we will certainly do so, but it is in conjunction with our partners.
Okay, well, I'm just looking to get some greater insight into what that criteria, what the science is that says whether or not you close or not. It has a lot to do with managing people's expectations, because right now we do have outcry for more timely closures. We're obviously late on Davis Lake, but if there's some sort of scientific criteria which drives it, we'd love to know it and be happy to share it with the community. Thank you.
Great. Certainly. I will follow up with that information and do a little bit deeper digging on that. I can tell you that for the last 2 days, I have been up in a helicopter looking at the Davis Lake fire. I can assure you that there are no values at risk at this time, as there are no evacuation alerts or orders in place. The crews are making good progress on that fire. It is in very steep and rugged terrain. There are danger trees, there is rolling debris, and with the aviation resources that we have on that fire right now, they are making good progress. I can also tell you that on that fire, there is a planned ignition. This is the safest way to manage the fire at this time. So that means that they have built a containment line around the fire, and they intend to do a planned ignition to make a fuel break from where the containment lines are towards the fire.
I'm very, very appreciated everything that the crews are doing. Yeah, we watch with crossed fingers, but we know you're on it. But thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. Director Kaus.
Thank you through the chair. Thank you for your presentation very much. human caused. My colleagues are asking with regards to human caused fires. I've been seeing and hearing anecdotally what some people think the definition of human caused is. I've heard some suggesting that climate change and global warming is human caused, and that might play into how these fires are defined. If you're not able to provide a succinct definition now, is there somewhere that we can go to get a definition of human caused?
Certainly. So the BC Wildfire Service website has an incredible amount of information, from fire cause analysis, response efforts, criteria, such as the one that you've mentioned. I'm not sure if the backcountry closure is on that website, but I will look into that for you. You know, human caused wildfires are a number of the things that I've mentioned. They're also firearms discharged out in the backcountry, runaway campfires, sparks from ATVs, backyard burning. You know, there are several causes that can be determined as a human caused wildfire. You know, it's not my place to determine whether climate change is human caused or not, as I'm an information officer, not a climate scientist. But, you know, when we look at human caused wildfire, we look at the, in the respect of wildfire response. So if there is a fire on the landscape, what is the cause of it starting on the landscape?
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Castle. Director Adamo.
Lastly, thanks very much through the chair. Thanks for your presentation. This will be relatively quick in terms of closures or the ability to have closures. In your work with other local fire departments, are you able to determine if they contact you to say that they don't have, perhaps on a long weekend, enough manpower to safely take care of a particular area? Would they have the ability to create their own closure? That's kind of the thing that part of my area is looking at. An ability to work with whomever it is to work with to obtain the right to close a particular area because of lack of services to provide a safe outcome for all of the residents in that area.
I will need to go to our senior wildfire operations prevention specialist to ask that question. That's the first time I've heard that question. I can certainly understand the interest in doing so, but I do not have the answer. I can find it for you, and I will follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Adamo. We're going to be running up against our end time with Ms. Kelly, but quickly, Director Makahonic.
So just the same as Director Adamos, my area is Chilliwack River Valley, one road in, one road out. When we're looking at not closing, and it's a broader area, I think that I would really like to see that we are able to kind of carve out different areas that make sense to close, maybe in a graduated way, so that it would make more sense to close an area like that area for Adamos and area E, things like that, because they are distinct and they have their own risks. So you know, Cultus is the same, one road in and one road. There are many areas that all have different, I guess, criteria maybe set up to have that. So I think residents, I know it's really important to recreate. We talk about people's mental health and anxiety, but residents, I think their mental health and anxiety levels get pretty high too when we start looking at the high temperatures and drought conditions. And we have 1.5 to 2 million people coming in to recreate. It gets pretty scary. So thank you for your time, and I really appreciate your presentation.
Thank you. And just for clarification, is this consideration in closing the roads and to anyone who is not a resident?
Sorry, no, I'm referring to Forest Service roads back onto Crown land, and the ability to close off the access in the event that we determine that our local fire department does not adequately have the proper manpower or person power on that particular weekend to deal with something.
Okay.
So it's
And
a
with
little bit-
respect to the Chilliwack Valley,
I think we would have to close off the Forest Service roads and where people go in and go and camp, but I think that would have to be determined. But I think if we close the road off generally, we would get some pushback. I think it would be, I mean, you know, because it is one road in and one road, I think it would be easier to enforce. Thank you.
thank you.
Good, thank you, directors, and thanks, Ms. Kelly, affording us some time at a very busy time of year for your wildfire service. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Stay safe.
Good, Ms. Kinnaman.
So our next delegation is Steve Brubaker from Urban Systems Limited on the FVRD Electoral Area Sanitary Sewer Gap Analysis Update.
Great. Our old friend has come to talk to us about community plumbing.
Yes, I'm
Welcome.
glad to be back. Shrek, did you want to do any introduction? Okay. So yeah, today the goal here is to provide an update on the sewer gap project that we've been working on. And I know that we've been back to you a few times in the last couple of years, but I know time flies, so we'll do a bit of a recap. Sorry. So today we're going to do, again, a review of the background and purpose for the sewer gap study. We'll have a look at the vision statement that was reviewed and updated as part of this update, and then look at the electoral area assessment of each electoral area and discuss next steps. By the way, we don't have a ton of slides here, and so if there's any questions, feel free to ask along the way. We don't have to wait till the end of the presentation if you would prefer. So again, background and purpose. So back in 2012 and 2013, we did a sustainable sewer service delivery policy that was created with staff and EASC, and we did a sewer gap analysis at that time on the project. At that time, we also had some provincial funding to implement a lot of the recommendations that were in that gap analysis, and so many of those were completed as part of that process. Since that time, 3 new community sewer systems have been developed, and there's been 8 years of experience in order to learn from, and that was the reason for the desire to update the policy as well as the gap analysis. So back in February 2022, we brought an updated policy to EASC, and that was adopted. And since then, we've done an updated sewer gap analysis, and today we're going to go through that gap analysis and then confirm the recommendations from the analysis and then complete this portion of the work. The vision, just to reiterate, so the FVRD supports sustainable rural communities by taking a proactive, regional, and holistic approach to sanitary sewer service provision. This comprehensive approach ensures all users in these communities have access to infrastructure that protects public health and the environment. And the FVRD, in collaboration with senior government agencies and through ownership of sanitary infrastructure, is a provincial leader in providing effective and efficient rural sanitary sewer services. And you know, just in my opinion, I would suggest that the FVRD has done an amazing job since 2012 in really forwarding this vision. And you know, Director Dixon will know that we're soon to break ground on the Cultus Lake wastewater plant, and that has been one of the major recommendations from the last go around, and very exciting to see that we're going to be very close to realizing that reality. So great work for all staff and elected officials in that regard. So back when we did the previous gap analysis, we had established 4 priorities in terms of when we're identifying gaps, how to address them. These have not changed in this assessment. Priority number 1 is protecting public health and the environment. Number 2 is meeting system capacity and reliability service levels. 3 is improving the delivery efficiency of the system. And then 4 is supporting community development. So we've come up with a few regional priorities with recommendations in order to help the FVRD move forward. The first is to create a sanitary sewer system regulation and fees bylaw. You already have one for your water. You don't have one for sewer. This would allow the FERD to provide clarity around provision of governance of sanitary sewer utilities, and in particular, provide guidance to the residents who are, or the ratepayers who are serviced by sewer utilities on what their responsibilities are as well. The plan for this is that it would be done with staff time, and that's a recommendation to address both priority number 1 and priority number 2. The second is to update the subdivision bylaw. This has been an ongoing process, and FERD staff have been doing updates to the subdivision bylaw, and the recommendation here is to continue to do that to reflect changes within the FERD, as well as the MMCD design criteria manual, which was the basis for the previous bylaw, has recently been updated. So to do an update to the bylaw to reflect those new criteria as well. This will address all 4 priorities, obviously addressing not only the health of the environment, existing service levels, efficiency, as well as development. The third is a biosolids management plan update. You currently do have a biosolids management plan, but there has been some changes, which I believe you are likely aware of. This includes the Metro Vancouver putting in a temporary permit on discharges to that, which will expire, as well as eliminating the reference to the James plant. The FERD is working to a more local approach to biosolids, which will be realized once the Cultus Lake wastewater plant is built, so that you can be more self-sufficient in regards to utilizing the biosolids for a local benefit. The next item is development permit areas. So as official community plan updates are completed, the recommendation is to consider whether development permit areas make sense to bring into play and where, and then to make sure that suitable provisions are in place for the protection of the natural environment. And the cost of this obviously is to be determined, but it would be recommended that it be done in conjunction with official community plan updates. And then finally, in the previous sewer gap, there had been discussion around the FERD taking on a more active role in the operations and maintenance of sanitary sewer systems. And if you recall, we did a study on that, and it was determined that the FERD would prefer to leave that responsibility with Fraser Health. And so we've updated the language within the sewer gap to really just focus on collaboration with Fraser Health, not take on that additional responsibility through bylaw and regulation, but rather just focus on allowing the FERD to continue that responsibility for monitoring and compliance of operations and maintenance of on-site systems. So before leaving the regional priorities, any questions on those before we go to the electoral area specific ones?
Everybody's happy so far.
All right. So what we've done for each electoral area, we've sort of given it a red, yellow, and green stoplight to where the electoral area is in terms of environmental health pressure, growth pressure, and the sewer utility health. Of course, this is for sewer utilities that are owned and operated by the Fraser Valley Regional District. So electoral area A has got medium environmental health pressure. As we know, the areas in and around Boston Bar do have environmental considerations in that area, but it's medium. There's low growth forecast in the electoral area A, so that's a green. And the sewer utility health is low. Again, this Boston Bar sewer system, North Bend sewer system is the, I believe, oldest sewer system that the FERD owns and operates. And so it's getting near the end of its life. And so there has been a bunch of renewal activities focused in the previous sewer gap, and there's more outlined in this sewer gap. This includes doing some repairs on the tank upstream of the lift station, evaluating the aeration and disposal fields for replacement or upgrading, and cleaning of the lagoon. And there's a budget currently listed of $500,000 to deal with the North Bend sanitary sewer system. Electoral area B has got medium also environmental health pressures, as well as medium growth pressures. However, there's no current FERD owned sewer utilities, so that is not applicable. So this is obviously just more for information. Electoral area C has got obviously very important environmental health pressures, lots of growth, and the sewer utility health While actually it's listed as good, it's got some challenges in electoral area C for the sewer utility, and that's all being addressed, which we'll talk about here in the next piece. Lake Yurok currently has a sanitary servicing plan that is being developed in collaboration with the Harrison Rise development, and so that is one thing that's in process. With the Harrison Mills neighborhood plan, there's also a local sanitary servicing plan that's in place to deal with the growth pressures and the needs for that system. And then Hemlock Valley, this is for future consideration. Obviously, this is privately owned and operated at this time, but as development further is proposed and the temporary servicing that's up there right now transitions, there is a recommendation that a local servicing plan be developed. This does not necessarily mean that the FERD would own and operate the Hemlock Valley system, but just that it's something that there'd be a plan for and an understanding of what the go-forward strategy is for that area. Electoral area D as well has got high environmental health pressure, high growth pressure. Sewer utility health here is yellow. Of course, it's a bit variable, but the main focus, of course, is recently there's been a completed local sanitary servicing plan for West Popcom for the areas that are outside of the current serviced area. And then what's recommended within the plan is as development occurs, including the gondola project, if and when it proceeds, that there would be a local sanitary servicing plan for Bridal Falls and consider how to best service that commercial growth and development in that area. Electoral area E, that one has got green in terms of environmental health pressure. It's got no forecast growth, so again, that's green. And the sanitary sewer utility health is good. F, we've got high environmental health pressure. We've got low in terms of growth, and since there are currently no sewer utilities in that area, it is not applicable. And G, again, high environmental health pressure, low growth pressure, so green, and also no existing sanitary sewer utilities. Focus there, obviously, DeRoche. There will be a local sanitary servicing plan once development, or if and when development proceeds in that area. And then for Hatzick Island, as you're aware, there's work being undertaken by the province to look at environmental scoping, cumulative effects monitoring, and there's a recommendation for a local sanitary servicing plan for the Hatzick Island development. And then area H has got red, as we know, environmental health pressures in and around Cultus Lake, high growth pressures, and the current sewer utility is low, but there's a plan to address that. So obviously we've got construction of the North Wastewater Treatment Plant Phase 1 in progress, the plan for Phase 2 as growth proceeds, and then a plan for an additional South Wastewater Treatment Plant, again, as growth is planned and occurs. So with that, open to any questions.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. I see Director Davidson has his hand up.
One quick question. Hopefully, can you elaborate quickly on area F environmental health pressures? I wasn't aware of them as it relates to septic, but I may be missing something. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. It's more just the portion in and around, obviously, what feeds into the lake. So I mean, recognizing that there's challenges both on the island and on in the valley there in terms of lake health. I realize there's not a direct connection necessarily proven to septic, but we all know that there's, yeah, it's a sensitive area, hence the reason for the red.
Right. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. Director Adam.
Thanks very much. Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question in terms of private systems. When we see some of the write-ups and it says on-site private system conforming to existing end use, how do we know if that is conforming? Because we've never seen Fraser Health do a single inspection, for example.
Yes, that is a very good question. And And when we did the last sewer gap, there was a lot of concerns about whether or not those systems were being maintained. At the present time, health functions on a complaint basis. Yeah, they don't have the resources to proactively be out in front. So what some areas have done, more so in Washington State than in British Columbia, have put in operations and maintenance bylaws and a requirement for reporting, much like cross-connection control for water systems. But when we looked through that in the previous work, which I totally understand, it's a big responsibility that comes with the need to fund a service and to have staff to manage it. And yeah, at the time it was just felt that there was not the ability or willingness to take on that pretty big responsibility. But it's an excellent question, particularly as you see more type 3 and type 4 systems being put in areas that have got high water table or dense development. It's a concern across the province, and yeah, it's a great question to probably, you know, raise with Fraser Health and ask them what their plans are, but they are resource strapped. Yeah.
Can you, thank you. And can you just go to area B for a second, please? Yep. So when you're identifying growth pressure as medium, what's the criteria? What is low, medium, high? What is that?
So low basically is none.
Yeah.
Medium just means more like some. And so obviously you've got some growth envisioned in Sunshine Valley, which I know is not really under the, obviously there's no bylaw authority in that space.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that the FERD was going to take an active pressure, but there is growth within Sunshine Valley. That was why it's there.
Yeah, I'm referring specifically to Sunshine Valley with, you know, 200 new homes being built in the next in the last year and a half, in the next year and a half, and up to 1,000, and with no
oversight,
nothing, no rules or regulations, and they're all individual systems. So I'm looking for a way to process that and to ensure that the remainder of the real community is protected. So
yeah, it's a great question, and I would suggest, I mean, health is not unafraid of these conversations, and so that's probably where the best efforts are, is to reach out to Fraser Health, and because obviously they have to receive. Now with the reliance on the professional model, they don't do a lot of other than receive of reports, but I think it's valid. It's a valid conversation to have with Fraser Health for sure.
thanks.
Thank you, Director Adamo. Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this report. Given a highly technical, somewhat not very sexy topic, as a new director, sometimes these reports are a little bit much. I found this report actually quite easy to read through, and I probably spent way more time learning about sewers than I intended, but I thought it was a very well presented report and I learned a lot. Your maps could use some work. That's all.
Yes.
Given all of that in my learning, and I don't know if this is a question that Mr. Brubaker can answer, or if this is for staff, with regards to Hatzic Island, the scoping study and the monitoring that is currently underway now, that's being paid for or has been paid for by the province. Is that correct?
Correct. Do you want to speak to that?
The scoping study for which one, Director Castle?
Hatzic Lake?
Hatzic Lake, that's paid by the
Hatzic
province.
Island,
Yeah.
sorry.
Hatzic.
It's being paid, that's being covered by the province?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when it talks about if we get to the need for the LSSP, the 20,000 that would be FERD funding, I see that is, and I can't even remember what the word is.
Feasibility fund?
Yes. Where would that 20,000 come from?
I believe this is a capacity issue, so we would be asking for a Community Works Fund contribution for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, a few questions if the chair would allow. First of all, Lake Yurok in my area has a bunch of smaller lots on site sewer systems. And I guess there's a varied degree of performance, you might say. Has my question, as the Fraser Health, do they have the authority to do like a blanket test for an area of sewer systems that are that close to a lake, like a body of water? Like, have you ever seen them do like a dye test or enforce a dye test in a certain area?
I haven't. It's a great question to ask them. I have a feeling that if somebody complained, they would probably have to do something about it. I haven't seen Fraser Health be very proactive, and Director Dixon can speak to Cultus Lake, and I don't think it was Fraser Health that was doing all of the monitoring, and that was more DFO and the FERD who was being proactive in that regard. One thing I will say for Lake Yurok is the Harrison Rise development, and staff can speak to this, is doing a lake health monitoring plan, which, at least in my observation, at least for for Hatzic, it was very effective in getting the public to understand the importance of the issue. And so I think hopefully this will also help. And maybe Graham or Trek can speak to that for Hatzic, for Lake Yurok, if that's a question.
Okay. Thank you. Secondly, as far as Harrison Mills, I know we're going through the community or the neighborhood plan, so the population numbers aren't there at this point, but just the existing plant on Morris Valley Road, what class is that? Like class 1, 2, 3, or whatever, type 1? I'm not.
Sterling?
Through the chair, it's a class C.
Class C. What does class C mean? Like, what's the difference? Just in a layman short term,
Under the BC municipal wastewater regulation, it defines the different classes of effluent that are discharged to the ground. So class C would just speak to the levels of BOD, TSS, biochemical, oxygen demand, total dissolved solids,
and fuel coliform.
solids, coliform, total coliform, basically what can be discharged to the ground or to the environment.
And by the way, so class A is the most stringent.
Okay.
Class D is the least stringent. So septic tank is class D, and what we're building in Cultus Lake is class A. And so most of the plants, the new plants at the FERD, are class A effluent. Class C is like what they would call secondary treatment, whereas class A would be tertiary treatment, if you've heard those terms before.
Through Mr. Chair, if I can add one thing, like for an example, class A is the highest standard by the province, but for Cultus Lake, we are adding a phosphorus removal as well. So that's why we kind of call it class A plus. So, but it's not under provincial regulation, but we are just going above that.
So just for clarity, under our new policy, our updated policy for sewer, any new developments must be class A?
Through the chair, it's the effluent quality needs to meet the environmental requirements for the receiving environment. So it's not explicitly class A, but in a lot of your areas which are environmentally sensitive, that's what comes out in terms of what's needed. It really depends on the rate of application and the setbacks to the property line from the point of discharge that would confirm the effluent class. But all the new ones have come out as class A in the reviews.
Yeah, I think one of the main reason is also like if there's a community well nearby and you have a very smaller footprint to dispose your wastewater effluent, then typically it comes back as class A because of the environmental requirement that we need to meet. And typically also the less land the developer can use would be a class A, because class B or class C would require a bigger portion of the land because the land costs are high. So, in the older ages, you would see a long time ago, people would use class B or C, but nowadays more class A's are proposed by the developers.
So as far as land size, you're referring more to the fields, the disbursement fields involved?
Yes, yeah, effluent disposal field.
Disposal.
Yeah, and travel time. So they have to meet a certain time period to hit property line based on the effluent class. So the shorter amount of travel time, the more treatment is needed.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's just concerned because I had a meeting with the Stratas yesterday, and there seemed to be a couple very expert sewer people there, so I wanted to come to clarify some of this. So when you're changing one plant to another, so you're saying one existing plant in Morris Valley, in the report, it looks like you're looking at two options, either replacing the plant or upgrading the existing plant. Is that, and both options are on the table? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, I'll leave Hemlock alone. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Quickly, I read the report, Mr. Brubaker's talk about surface water discharge. I was trying to imagine how that could happen.
Surface water discharge? Yeah.
Yeah.
Only if, I mean, if you had a septic, well, I guess in the context, you can obviously build plants that are allowed to discharge to sewer, to surface water.
Okay,
with
we have none in the.
none.
Okay,
No, it's, and a lot of First Nations, that is one of the challenges. I mean, they would much prefer to see ground disposal wherever possible to protect the surface water supplies.
okay.
We went through that definitely with the lake development, with Cultus, but, it's definitely an option. It just requires.
But it's not present in our.
No,
regional
you don't have any as far as I'm aware.
And something else I thought, I read that they were talking about 60-meter setbacks from wells. I always thought it was 30-meter setbacks from wells.
It's been updated, and it really depends on the level of treatment again. So it can be as much as 300 meters depending on your level of effluent treatment. So yeah,
That could get
that affects your
complicated.
treatment. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm good. Anybody else with more? Oh, Director Dixon.
Just
please.
lastly, when was this, when
okay.
was this research project completed?
So in terms of the on-site systems, that was done in 2012. We didn't go back and re-download all of the data for the on-site systems. The assessment of all the FERD owned systems was just done this past year.
Okay, thanks.
Good, thank you, Director Adamo, Director Dixon.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. And yes, all the work on the cul-de-sac. This is more a comment because I don't really think there's an answer. Certainly the systems in my area are super expensive for a small number of people to pay into, and I am getting feedback around that. And it seems that the private systems don't have the cost is not the same. Sometimes there's more people paying into it. I get that as well. And so I think just as we move forward that to be aware of that, I'm sure we are, but it is very much a reality in my area that all of a sudden we have a $14 million sewer system coming online with really a small number of homes paying into it. And over time that may change, but that's where we are right now. It's pretty pricey, and so that's the cost of A+.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Through Mr. Chair, if I can add a little bit of comment to that. We have updated our sewer policy, and one of the things that we have updated is to make sure that we have financial sustainability built into it. So if a new proposal comes in, we're going to look into how that will affect in terms of taxation and cost of operating, and how that so that is incorporated into our policy. So we will apply that as the development application comes to us.
Good, thank you, Director Dixon. That appears to solved all our problems in the world, Mr. Brubaker, and we do thank you very much for once again coming to see us.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Kinham.
So Chair Dickey, I do see that there is a motion for the committee's consideration relative to item 5.1.
That's right.
So moved.
Moved by Director Castle, second Director Wardenberg. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, contrary motion carries.
Okay, so at this time, we'd be looking for a resolution to move into close.
Motion, move Director Wardenberg, second Director Adamo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary motion carries.
Okay, and if you just give us a couple of minutes to prepare the room.
It'll be a long meeting.
So Chair Dickey, that brings us to item 6.1, which is the draft Electoral Area Services Committee open meeting minutes of June 8th, 2023.
For a motion, move Director Dixon, second Director Johnson. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
7.1 is a 2023 grant request for the Yale and District Ratepayers Association and Electoral Area B.
Motion, Director Adamo, move second. Director Wardenberg, seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
7.2 is a 2023 grant and aid for the Laidlaw Ratepayers Association in Electoral Area B.
Director Adamo moves second. Director Wardenberg, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
7.3, 2023 grant and aid request for the Sunshine Valley Volunteer Fire Department in Electoral Area B.
Motion, Director Adamo, second. Director Dixon, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
7.4 is a 2023 grant and aid request for the DeRoche Elementary School PAC in electoral areas C and G.
So moved.
Move Director Castle, second Director Wardenberg, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
7.5 is a 2023 grant and aid request for the Mount Hope Senior Citizens in electoral area B.
Motion, Director Adamo, second Director Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
7.6 is the financial plan 2023 to 2027 amendment for July.
So moved.
Move Director Castle, second Director Dixon, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
7.7 is the Capital Reserve Establishment Bylaws number 1708, 1709, 1710, 1711, and 1712.
Motion. Director Johnson, second Director Dixon, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Motion number 2, Chair Dickey.
Move Director Dixon, second Director Wardenberg, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
And motion number 3.
Move Director Makahonic, second Director Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
And motion number 4.
Move Director Wardenberg, second Director Dixon, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
And motion number 5.
Motion, Director Makahonic, second Director Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Thank you. So item 8.1 is the Nacomin Island Pump Station improvements. There is a motion for your consideration.
So moved.
Director Castle moves, second Director Adamo, discussion. Director Castle.
Yes, this is a big one for Area G, and I'm very happy to see it on the agenda today. This is a project that was identified as a need in 2015 and funded in 2017. It's finally coming to fruition and moving forward. I'd like to thank staff and members of the steering committee for their willingness to move forward with improvements to drainage on Nacomin Island, which is home to some very important and productive agricultural lands, as well as a major transportation corridor that, as we saw in 2021, is crucial to the economic systems of our country. I'm encouraged that we are able to enhance the resiliency of our ability to mitigate flooding with improvements like submersive pumps, bringing electrical kiosks and pump controls to grade, built above flood elevation, and installing backup switches in the event of an emergency. I appreciate the support of the committee to move this important project forward, and thank you.
Thank you, Director Castle. We certainly don't want to see Director Castle out swimming with his heifers on the nightly news. So any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
9.1 is a special event permit for the 20th annual Around the Lake Trail Race in electoral area H.
It's an annual occurrence. Move Director Dixon, second Director Adamos, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
9.2 is electoral area C official community plan update, project progress, and geohazard report authorization.
Okay, looking for a motion. Move Director Wardenberg. Seconder, Director Johnson, discussion. Director Castle.
Uh, very, very technical report. Most of it was way above my head. But I'm gonna ask kind of a low level on the ground question. Are there any development applications currently in the DeRoche bench area where these hazards have been identified? And what implications the adoption of this, what implications to those developments might there be, and what impact might this have to existing residents who want to develop their properties?
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Castle. I don't come to you today with a list of, say, building permits that are active in this area. I think we could assume probably that there are building permits in this area active. Typically, geotech reports like this are helpful in that their intent is to reduce cost to individual property owners associated with site-specific reports or reports that owners pay for just for their property. So what we do with these types of reports in advance of a community plan is we have a professional go out and look at the area, they identify the hazards, and they come up with, I'll say, prescriptions, guidelines for how development building can occur on those properties, how the development can be protected. And that saves individual property owners very often the need to do their own reports. That's not universally true. There are some hazard areas where the hazards are just complicated and they need to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. But typically, there's a strong overall benefit to the community in terms of reducing their costs for construction by doing these kinds of reports.
Thank you. And if I may, just to clarify what I think I hear you saying, it's not necessarily that we've burdened them because we've identified risks, but we've removed the burden of having to potentially pay for that themselves. Risks would assumably be identified anyway. We're just identifying those risks sooner, and so that it's not the resident that has to bear that.
Yeah, yes, that's fair. We have a good sense for what hazards look like in that community. This report increases the accuracy of our understanding by providing mapping, lets people know ahead of time, and in a number of cases will save people having to do their own reports. So we could do a report like this, say for a few tens of thousands, or 25 property owners could produce individual site-specific reports, say for 7,000 to 8,000 each. So there's a very strong business case for this kind of work.
Good, thank you, Director Castle. Maybe along the same lines, I sometimes wonder about our methodology. If someone comes to our planning counter and say that they are interested in buying a piece of property on the benchlands of the Chilliwack River Valley, do we have a well thought out protocol to warn people of what risks they might be encountering? I just think of the disasters that could fall as a result of that.
Thank you, Chair. Another really strong question. We do have good protocols for talking with people over the counter or by providing property information through email or sometimes over the phone. And we do a very thorough job in sharing the hazard information we do have for areas. And we've got great information for some areas, sort of moderate information for others, and none for some properties. But we do share it. And the frame that we put on it is that we're sharing information produced by registered professionals. FERD is not determining the hazard level ourselves. We don't have that expertise, but we want prospective purchasers, owners, sometimes insurers or mortgagers to have the information that's available to us. It's a timely question too, because on the agenda today, we have a report about a grant-funded project we have that greatly improves our ability to provide geohazard information in the form of, say, 1,000 reports we have in our geohazard document database to property owners on a property-specific basis. That's a massive improvement over how we're currently able to share that information.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Danlus, and it would certainly seem to be a very important part of what we do here. So, any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm trying to find myself again. I assume 92. So on the motion, all those in favor Contrary, motion carries. Thank you.
10.1.1 is an information item. It's a report on the hazard map for EOC and preparedness.
Information item, any discussion, directors? Teams, there is none.
Okay, moving down to 11.1, we have an update to the E911 budgetary risks and next gen 911 transition.
Okay, thank you. Directors, any discussion on 911 program? Talked about this earlier today. Good. Seems we're fine.
11.2 is the Boston Bar Station House Architectural Design Contract Award. There is a motion for your consideration.
You move Director Johnson, second Director Adamo. Any discussion? Hearing none, Director Johnson, there we go.
Only that I'm most pleased that it's finally got to this stage and things are looking upward and onward. or
Great.
Onward and upward.
Wonderful. Thank you. This goes back a ways. On the motion, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
And 11.3 is amending the electoral area animal control service area to add electoral areas B and C, and there is a motion for your consideration.
It appears we might have some attitude problems with some unhappy hounds in areas B and C. Looking for a motion. Move Director Adamo, second Director Wardenberg. Any discussion?
Sure.
Director Adamo.
Yeah, this coming into my area, this is not something that will go without a little bit of controversy along the way. It's not a 100% approval process within the support of the community. However, it's something that in the 9 months that I've been involved, it continues to rise and grow as our communities grow, and our lack of any enforcement issues is very present. So it's something that will be a good discussion for everyone, but it's something that's really needed and wanted in our area. So I'm really glad that it made it to the table today. Thanks for all the work, by the way, and for meeting with Stacy. Good work on all that.
Good. Thank you, Director Adamo. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
And 13.1 is the quarterly update.
Which is for information, I'm assuming.
That's right.
Any discussion? Thank you, staff. Moving on.
Okay, item 15, reports by electoral area directors.
Director Johnson, like to start off today?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things. Last week, Andrew was at the AC pool with the Fire Smart program, and his comment was it started out slow. I checked in on him early in the day, and but he said near the end, when people were ready to leave, they checked out the booth, and a few residents were really interested in signing up for Fire Smart home assessment. So we'll see if they follow through with that. And then Monday, I met up Boothroyd and a Zoom meeting there with George Campbell on the wildfires, and we've already pretty much covered that today, but just point of interest is that we had 14 fires in our area, and George reported that 7 were now contained. And so the backcountry fires that are out of control are being monitored, but no resources are allocated to them. Kukupee is an old burn, so fuel is sparse, and they have contracted Eric Fibso to reopen the old, I think it's the old Powder Puff Road, so that it can be accessed if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Director Adamo.
Thanks very much. It's been a busy couple of months actually within my area. Just happy to report that the AL and District Historical Society has started to work together with the new Forager group that got the museum program for the next 5 years. And I've been working with them to help mediate to a certain extent, but to assist in the process. And they've met with the ministry, and things are in full swing, and they've actually had the museum open now and are starting to receive some of the artifacts back. There's still a great deal of work to do, but it's nice to see everyone working together. The pipeline reclamation work has already begun in my area, so people are happy to see that taking place as well. Still some major issues, but I wanted to thank everybody for all their hard work and effort in that. And thanks to everyone that participated in all of the Canada Days throughout the entire area. Sunshine Valley Canada Day was a great success, as well as Hope and the surrounding areas. And I would like to personally invite everyone out, because this will be the last chance I guess we get to invite them out. But August 12th in the Sunshine Valley, happy to present their second annual car show, and it'll be a huge success. Elvis Presley is in the house. Brian Adams is in the house, and it'll be an all-day event for families of all ages, and well over 200 automobiles will be present. So thanks very much, and I invite you all to come out for a visit. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Director Damo. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I had a meeting with one of the neighborhood groups, one of the stratas, one of which I live in, just regarding some sewer issues, tax issues, and so on. And I had the pleasure of meeting Minister Dan Coulter and members of the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure staff at Chilliwack, and yeah, it was a good meeting, and some other people were there, just regarding the priorities of Modi in the future, and yeah, we agreed to meet again. Thanks. Bye.
Great. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just had spent Canada Day in Columbia Valley. We had a fabulous turnout from really the whole community, a little parade and soapbox derby, and also had Fire Smart there, and it was well received. And Mr. Schellenberg did a great job of just connecting with people and providing them with information. So it's always pretty helpful. As well, Cultus Lake Day was great. I don't think I talked about that last time. They did a good job of having the Cultus Lake cleanup with some divers bringing things up, and we sorted garbage, and amazed to see what's in the lake, but I'm really thankful for all the work in keeping that area clean. With this summer, we've been able to coordinate traffic enforcement at Cultus Lake along the main road through the BC Park section, and it's been just an incredible amount of work, and I know staff certainly here, our FARD staff, as along with Cultus Lake Park Board, RCMP, Modi, BC Parks. It's just a long list here in Chilliwack, and try to get that in place. But it was in place for 2 weekends so far. They did tow 6 vehicles and did move several others along, which is great. The idea is just to keep the cars from parking on along the road, keep it safer. So hearing really great feedback from that, and certainly very grateful for the support that Area H has received to get that in place. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Dixon. Director McElhoney.
Thank you. Been really busy out in our area. So yesterday I had the pleasure of handing out awards to 5 individuals, and then I did plaques for the Residents Association, as well as the Chilliwack Better River Cleanup Society. And thanks to staff for making the boardroom available. They were really honored, and I have 2 summer students I'm working with right now. They came and did photos, and we're going to do a little press release. I may contact staff here, but it was really, really heartwarming, and they felt really, really honored. So that was really nice. We've been dealing with heat issues, in the community, and I kind of been on my other hat here, but so talk to both MLAs, the Minister of Transportation. We're just heading into summer. People that are precariously housed or homeless, and I think we all heard at the homeless count here, we have a lot of older people that are unhoused right now, and the heat will have severe effects. So we're seeing it, just the 2 hot days. So there is no plan in place. There is no transportation. Spoke with the city, and they're like, well-meaning, but said, they should go to the mall or the library. There's nowhere to get there. We've had single parents with children being overcome by heat, just trying to go grocery shopping on foot. So just be aware in your community, and just maybe let people know to keep an eye out for neighbors and things like that, because as we head into what's going to be a long, hot summer, people are going to be in trouble because they have no way to get to someplace cool. Did a lot of media stories, I think about 7. So it is out there, but when I talked to both the transportation minister and our MLA, they have no solutions on the horizon. Just flat out said, we have no solutions. So I tried kind of floating a few ideas. Didn't really feel that there was anything there. So I didn't walk away feeling hopeful from those meetings. Been working with residents that have been impacted from the previous flooding, and they're really struggling, and been able to get them together and kind of share stories, which has, I think, been really helpful for them. And they've got some plans. We're working together on that, and been able to get some new signage out in the valley. As you come into the valley, they have this wrap sign that has got red spray paint and bullet holes in it. Just doesn't look really good driving in. So that's going to be replaced this week, and then other signage up the valley. And then we had a race out last weekend in the valley, and I didn't know about it. But what happened is they went through some trails and there's a lot of damage. So I'm not sure what to do about those kinds of things. So and I have no way to get a hold of that group. So maybe we'll be contacting staff. But what do we do if we have groups come in to do an event and then there's damage? I'm not sure. So something there. And then our fire department has a small crew of 3 gone out with the wildfires to help out in the province. Very proud of them. And we have a pretty robust team. So I just want to commend them for their good work, and thinking of them all out there in the province as they battle this, all the fires. It's pretty scary out there. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. The Hatsic Lake Watershed Recovery Table has a new name. We are now the Hatsic Lake Watershed Team. Go Team Go. And we had our first meetings co-led by the FERD and Lacamo First Nation. I'm encouraged that we have regular attendees on the team meetings from FERD, Lacamo First Nations, the City of Mission, DADE, staff from the MLA's office, the Agricultural Ministry, as well as the Ministries of Environment, Emergency Management, Climate Readiness. And I appreciate the collaborative approach that's being taken by CAO Kinnaman and Rick McKamey from Lacamo First Nations on this project. And I'm especially grateful for the ongoing participation of DADE, as well as the strong leadership from Director Davidson at this table. This is definitely a team led by the community with the support of the provincial government. And as the new naive guy, I feel very optimistic that the team is moving forward. I had the opportunity within the last month to have 2 meetings with members of the CP Police, and they are keen to assist and be part of strategies to improve traffic safety along Route 7, as well as to address some of the challenges at the end of Hawkins Pickle Road around Norris Creek. So I'm very grateful for the time from the CP Police that they've taken to spend with me and talk about challenges as well as strategies. Directors Davidson, Wardenberg, and myself had an opportunity to meet with our newly appointed chief of the North Fraser Fire Department. We met with Chief Bars and Assistant Chief Stevens and had a really good discussion around how we can best support the fire department's work to keep residents and motorists safe. We all agreed that open communication and a renewed relationship between the fire department and the EA directors will be a benefit and something we all agreed is important to work towards. I was invited by the residents of the Sundorn development on Hatsic Island to participate in their Canada Day celebrations. And I had the pleasure of leading a rousing rendition of O Canada with MLA Minister Alexis. I'm not sure that the residents of Sundorn thought it was as pleasurable as Minister Alexis and I did in the beautiful sun beside Hatsic Lake, singing our hearts out. A few events coming up in Area G. Secrets and Pies is a murder mystery and dinner being hosted at the Drosh Community Hall on September 16th. This is an event being organized as a collaboration by the Sasquatch Lions Club, Root Down Farms, and myself to build friendships and goodwill in our community. Also on September 9th, at the Dudney Pub. We're hosting Drag in the Country, a drag show and dinner with proceeds to support community projects hosted by the Rotary Club of Mission Midday. And of course, you don't want to miss at least coming out to the Desroches Farmers Market once this summer. The Desroches Farmers Market is located in the parking lot of the FVRD Access Center in downtown Desroches, and it runs Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Have a wonderful, safe summer, everybody.
Good, thank you. Director Castle. Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. I have to correct Director Castle on something really important. The new name is Hatzick Watershed Stewardship Team. I think you're a little bit off there, and I'm kind of personally crushed that there's no G in there somewhere, because then we can call ourselves Hogwarts, but that's not to be, and we'll have to keep working on that acronym. But other than that, the Davis Lake wildfire, second of the season, is of the source of great anxiety to the community, and I thank you to staff for relaying the BC Wildfire Service information through Alertable. It certainly helps alleviate that anxiety. So yeah, really appreciate it. That's pretty much it for me. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Davidson. And I would have nothing to report. Just a question to staff. Do we have any idea whether we're going to have an August meeting?
Chair Dickey, there's nothing scheduled, but it would be at the call of the chair. So if you wanted to proceed with an August meeting, we would schedule one.
Yeah, I don't think I can remember having an August East meeting. Good, thank you. Moving on in the agenda.
So moving to public question period for items relevant to the agenda. At this time, we do not have any members of the public joining us in the boardroom, but I will turn things over to our corporate officer, Jamie Van Ness, for folks joining us via Zoom.
Thank you. We do not have any members of the public joining us by Zoom, so we can move on to the next item.
Good.
Which takes us to a motion for adjournment, Chair Dickey.
Thank you. Move Director Dixon, second Director Wardenberg. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, contrary, motion carries. Thank you, staff.
Thank you all.
Directors.
Thanks, everybody.
See you.